Hi there, welcome to this week's edition of the Record Rangers podcast, brought to you by NordVPN. I'm Douglas Dickie. I've been drafted in today. Had hoped to avoid having to talk about Rangers after the wreckage of last season for a few weeks, but I'm here joined by Andy Newport, my erstwhile colleague. Andy, how are you doing? You've been enjoying the wee break from domestic football?
Aye, to an extent, but we're right in the depths of silly season, and as I'm sure we'll go on to discuss, it's there's not much to be silly about. There's usually at this point of the year you're getting rumours left, right, and centre, but it has been eerily quiet for the last couple of weeks. So there's not been much for the likes of myself and colleagues across the Scottish media to be writing about. So in terms of Rangers, the sooner that ramps up and we've got something to get our teeth into, the better.
Absolutely. I'll start, obviously, there's a small matter of a World Cup getting underway tonight. It starts. I have to say, personally, it's been the lowest key build-up to a World Cup I can remember. I really can't really be bothered with it, to be honest. Far too many teams, far too much politics surrounding it. But obviously, there's some Rangers interest, Andy. We've got 3 players in the Scotland squad. Technically, Lawrence Shankland will become a Rangers player during the tournament. I think Shankland's made his case to start. Is that fair for Scotland? I think he's he's in such a rich vein of form. He's absolutely flying.
I would have been tempted to start him certainly against Haiti in a game that we have to be looking to score goals. I'd have been tempted to start him even before the 2 warm-up friendlies that we've had against Curacao and Bolivia, but I think his performances in both those games have absolutely cemented that he will be the starting centre forward, whether it's Lyndon Dykes or Shea Adams. Remains to be seen. I think obviously Adams has performance as well. Has gone a long way to sort of nailing down his place as well. I think the fact is the two of those guys are just the more natural goal scorers than Lyndon Dykes. Lyndon Dykes has absolutely got strengths and has been a huge figure for the national team for the last few years. But I think when it comes to the opener against a team that we really should be beating, we need to beat. We need to get perhaps even look to run up a few goals. Then for me, it's Shankland and Adams. And then I would be surprised to see Finlay Curtis playing a big part as well. I think Ben Gannon Doak with his performance because Bolivia's maybe made a late run to get a starting slot, but I think Finlay Curtis, the way he's performed and just the freshness he's brought to the squad and certainly the way that Steve Clarke's spoken about him, I think you can expect to see him playing a part off the bench come, well, I'm going to say Saturday night. It's really Sunday morning, isn't it? So, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be, I agree with you, some of the stuff that's going on over there with the ticket prices, fans getting, basically shafted by FIFA and even the sort of local authorities over there, things like £100 bus tickets to take you a 10-minute trip for Boston out to the stadium, and then all the other sort of stuff that goes with Donald Trump has sort of left a sort of bad taste in the mouth ahead of this. But listen, once the action gets underway, I'm sure we'll all forget about that and we can concentrate on what we're all there for, and that's to see some pretty good football, and hopefully Scotland go a long way.
I think from a kind of Rangers fan point of view, the first thing I'd say is, Lawrence, please don't get injured. It's kind of, Liam Kelly's not going to play, so I know he signed a new contract and whatnot, but he's there very much as a squad member. John Souttar might play. I think we're looking at Finlay Curtis and Lawrence Shankland to maybe see what we might get next season. Finlay Curtis, Steve Clarke seems to rate him much higher than Danny Rowe did, but I think he's impressed out at Kilmarnock, although very different pressures, very different tactics, very different environment.
I think in Rowe's defence, I think Curtis needed a run of games. I mean, he'd played bits and pieces there, but for me, he was still very raw. And as much as there was nice moments, there were other games where I thought he struggled, and he needed that run of games at a really good level. And I mean, I spoke to Barry Ferguson for his column last week about this, and he was entirely right. The thing that impressed me most about that move was that he went to Kilmarnock. He didn't go to a team that was safe in mid-table or go to a championship team where there wasn't the same jeopardy involved. He's gone to a Premiership team that are right down the bottom end of the table, up against it, fighting for their lives. And not only has he went there and contributed, he's made a huge contribution. I think it's 5 goals in 14 games, a couple of assists as well. I think you'll ask Kilmarnock fans, I think you can see by the way that Kelly sort of claimed them as their own to an extent. I think much to the disgruntlement of the Rangers support online anyway. But I think they appreciate what he did for them. And now, obviously, the next steps for him is now Rangers and obviously Scotland. That's a huge step up. But I think you've seen from the signs the way he took his goal against Curaçao. I mean, for me, that's what Finlay Curtis is all about. One touch and get a shot away. I think he's so direct. His first instinct is always to get a shot away. So, I think that's he should be looking to make his mark. I don't think he'll start many of the games, but I'll say 15, 20 minutes there, that's, especially at the end of games, those could be crucial periods where Scotland are looking for energy and somebody with a bit of zest and maybe just a bit of fearlessness. I think that's what he'll bring. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see how he gets on.
Yeah, my big thing with Finlay Curtis is I don't think he's the world's best winger, but what he certainly is, he's certainly got an eye for goal. Yeah. He seems to see the gaps in the goal rather than the goalkeeper. A lot of young players see the goalkeeper and hit it straight at him, whereas Curtis always seems to find the bottom corner, at least the ball's heading in that direction.
I agree with you. He's not a winger. He's a wide forward. I'd like to see him once he maybe fills out a bit and matures a wee bit, get a run through the middle. Right now, he's basically shunted out to the side because you're not going to stick a 19-year-old kid up front. And I still think he's got a bit of growing, a bit of filling out to do. But I think as he progresses, you'll see him later on in his career being an out-and-out centre forward.
2 other guys, Rangers interested in the World Cup, maybe for different reasons, is Nico Raskin and Theo Lasgard. Especially with the latter, I think we're all hoping that he might put in the kind of performances that we haven't, seen at Ibrox, and perhaps some mug championship team might come in with an offer. And Raskin, who I think will leave this summer, we'll probably already get big money for him, but a decent World Cup for Belgium could add a few pounds onto that. Nico Raskin's a guy, as you know, I've been very critical of. I think he flatters to deceive a lot of the time. I think his mouth's, bigger than his actual talent. But, World Cup, he's clearly a talented boy. He doesn't always show that on the pitch, but it'd be nice, and we're going to come to, building for the new season, but knowing what sort of money we might be coming in for Raskin, would help us build. We need to kind of wait for that. A transfer for him,
Yeah, I mean, for me,
can make things happen.
Yeah, for me, I think this is probably the right time for a partner of ways with Nico Raskin. I think you're right. I think he probably disappoints more than he impresses. The trouble is, the games that he impresses are the ones that people remember because invariably he is very good. And I think he lives off the reputation of those kind of performances. I'm thinking about, a Fenerbahce away, a Celtic away last season, when he was absolutely terrific, ran the show alongside Mohamed Diamande, and I think a lot of people are thinking this is a guy that Rangers should really be building their team around. But then, I go back to pieces I wrote last season, right after those games, Rangers went to St Mirren, they went to Dundee, and Raskin and Diamande were bullied just by guys who were, just a bit more physical than them. Certainly weren't, anywhere near their footballing ability, but they were able to dominate them just with desire and determination and a bit of physicality. And I think to be a proper Rangers midfielder, you have to be able to outfight people as well as outplay them. So for me, I think if Rangers can, if Nico Raskin can have a positive World Cup, and listen, you're playing alongside the likes of De Bruyne and Yuri Tielemans. I mean, he's got everything in his favour in that sense. I mean, all he needs to do is get the ball and give it to those guys, and he'll look like a superstar on that basis. So I think if he can have a reasonably decent World Cup, then offers might come in. I'm not sure that you'll get I think, you've all heard down the years punters going, oh, he's worth 20, 25. I don't think they'll get anything near that. I think if they're getting towards double figures, they'll bite their hand off for that. and then they can use that, as you say, use that money to reinvest. I think it's time Rangers sort of properly focused on overhauling that midfield. I think it's not been a patchwork job, but they've signed guys likes a Diamandi, likes a Conor Barner asking in there that they thought would be the long-term vision. It's just, for whatever reason, it's not worked. These guys can't do it on a consistent enough basis. And I think it's time that was the focus of the summer, overhauling that. I mean, obviously, Shankland coming in already this summer, Termiti improving by the month. If they can keep hold of him there, I think that's a pretty potent strike force. I think that now what has to be the focus for Rangers this summer is getting guys who can feed them, who can control a game and who can create. I think that has to be what Rangers look to make the main priority this summer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we've got far too many midfielders that just can't pass the ball. You know, they're good at everything else, but their passing is very safe a lot of the time. I lost count.
Yeah, safe's the word, isn't it?
The games at Tynecastle and Parkhead towards the end of the season, the amount of times the guys wide, instead of putting the ball into the space for them to run onto, it was hammered straight at them.
Yeah.
And then, you know, your wide man's got to stop. And then all of a sudden, you know, the opposition are back. We need guys with invention. We need guys who can pick out passes. But the problem we've got, Andy, as you alluded to earlier, right now is it's we're almost having to wait for the World Cup to start the rebuild.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you know, the World Cup's going to end and we're going to be back in action, you know, really soon. After it, there's not a lot of turnover time, but we need to wait and see what other clubs do. We need to wait and see if anybody comes in for our players. It's a really awkward situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's a food chain when it comes to the summer recruitment window, and unfortunately, Rangers are some way down it. Obviously, I think you'll see a lot of Premier League clubs. I mean, it's always a sort of false economy, these big tournament summers, because I think people can get lured into if somebody has a great tournament, they'll go and take a punt on them. But how often do you see guys who just sort of come to life for 3-4 weeks in the summer, and then they're so burnt out from the exertions of a long season and then a tournament end that they don't really kick on and whatnot. But listen, I mean, I think what you'll find is that a lot of the business will get done after the World Cup sort of gets underway, and then Rangers, where they are, will have to wait for things to shake up before they can get the guys, maybe the guys in the fringes or bigger clubs, they'll have to wait for those guys to get the green light to move on. So where they're at right now, obviously there's only been a couple of rumours. Obviously Brian Reynolds was the one this week. My understanding is that he's on a list that Rangers are looking at. I think there's been reports in Belgium saying that a bid was getting in. Scott Burns this week reported for us say that that's not the case. But obviously it'll be somebody that Rangers will know well. They obviously scouted Westerlo last year quite extensively in terms of bringing in Tour Rollins. So Brian Reynolds, American internationalist, played on the opposite side. Obviously missed out in the US World Cup squad. It's a strange one because I think there's so many. All of the reports I've seen on him is a guy that's attributes going forward, but has areas games defensively that might be.
Sounds familiar.
I mean, Rangers fans have got pretty recent experience. A right back who fits that sort of bill. So whether or not he's been signed, because obviously James Tavernier leaving has left a position vacant there. Now you ordinarily you go, Dujon Sterling's there as cover, so you only maybe need another right back. But obviously we all know about Dujon Sterling's propensity, if you want to call it that, to get picking up niggles and injuries. Might mean that maybe they look to bring in two fullbacks this season. So is Brian Reynolds, maybe just the second choice one, and they've got somebody else who's higher up their list that they're looking at. That remains to be seen. But listen, I think it's going to be a busy summer. I mean, I was speaking to somebody at Ibrox this week, and things have gone slow, just as you're saying. They're waiting for things elsewhere to sort of ramp up. I think obviously, the last couple of weeks are the same, and it's been so eerily quiet in terms of rumours. Even if I'm speaking to, you're speaking to agents, you're speaking to people around the club, trying to find out what's going on, if they can give you any sort of any tidbits here or there, and even those guys are saying no, it's very quiet right now. I know the club are sort of beavering away. Dan Purdy, Jim Gillespie, chief executive, I think they're heading over to America this week to maybe cast an eye at the World Cup. So listen, I think there will be business ramping up the next few weeks, but I just think it's where Rangers are in the pecking order. They're going to have to wait for business elsewhere to get done before they can sort of look to make their own moves.
Yeah, I mean, from a fan point of view, I'm not too worried yet, because I was always expecting this summer.
I mean, look, put it this way. I mean, Douglas, just put it this way. I don't even think Danny Rowe's back in the country yet. No. I think he's obviously went away to spend some time with his family. I mean, it's 2-3 weeks since the season ended. I mean, we're still as much as you're absolutely right, and you say, like, I think the players are back a week on Monday. That's when they report back for pre-season. So, I mean, the days that you have in 5-6 weeks off are over. It's quite a tight turnaround. But I think even the first sort of tranche of players coming back will mostly be the fringe guys. Obviously, they're not national boys. They need to get time off after their time at the World Cup. So, it could be a few weeks yet before you see the full squad together. And, listen, we know just the likelihood is that Rangers will do the majority of their business sort of late on in the window, heading towards maybe even September. Well, certainly, you might surprise me. You think about beginning of last season. Cyril Dessers was the starting centre forward for Rangers for the first 3-4 games of the season, and before Yusuf Chermiti came in. So, the team that starts the first game of the season might not look very much like the team that kicks off at the start of September.
Yeah, I mean, the problem from Danny Rowe's point of view, of course, is that there's already scepticism about him. If we have a poor start to the season, we're going to need to go to Parkhead in the first 4 games, probably. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't shock me too much for us to be sent to Tynecastle as well. Yeah. Those are, a big challenge for him to turn around the mood of the club, I suppose. It's not just about incomings as well. Right now, of course, we've got guys who we might be wanting to offload. We've got a few guys coming back for loan. Ben Davies is off the wage bill. One of my most ingrained moments in my Rangers memory, it will live rent free in my head forever, was him taking a corner in Prague just as he was playing at left back. I've never seen more baffled faces in a pub in my life. I've got to say, we still talk about it to this day. But he's off the books. But there's another few guys, your Danilos, your Ross McCauslands, your Jose Cifuentes. I mean, we need to get these guys off the wage bill.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Davies will be a big chunk. Obviously, he spent, I think it was last season at Oxford, season before that at Birmingham, and they would have been contributing, but he was on a hefty wage. Danilo is on a pretty hefty wage himself. He's coming back, having obviously went to Nijmegen last season, and I don't think really, set the heather alight. Listen, I know from speaking to people at the club these days that they're going to be striking a far harder bargain when it comes to wages and salaries, and they're certainly not going to be sort of burning the tens upon tens of thousands that they were dishing out, certainly under Michael Beale. But that should be, these guys coming off the wage bill, hopefully that should give Danny Rowe some more money to spend, whether it be, give him a sort of stronger hand when it comes to guys on free transfers and Bosman sort of deals. But I mean, it is remarkable that Ben Davies was until last week still a Rangers player. I mean, this is a guy who sort of coming in under, I think he came under Gio Van Ron. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, you think back to that summer, that was really the beginning of Rangers sort of spiral into the sort of depths that they are now. Just that was the first sort of failed summer transfer drive, and then you've probably had 3-4 successive, failed windows after that, and it's culminated to the point of Rangers, finishing third last season. So this has to be a sort of clean slate for the club. It has to be a fresh start. They have to get rid of the deadwood and start adding quality. They have to start adding characters. I mean, obviously the club have been very, very open about that. Lawrence Shankland coming in is absolutely a step in the right direction in that front, but there needs to be more. And just, I mean, I mean, as I say, just to go back to the previous point, but just how long this is sort of taken, or how little movement there's been so far. I mean, you can look at it and go, Hearts have sort of made they've got off to a sort of flyer already. They've got, I think it's 4 signings in already. But you look at the guys they've lost, they've got some pretty big holes in last year's team to fill to get back to the levels they were at last season. Celtic, meanwhile, they are still, for some reason, thrashing out negotiations with Martin O'Neill's backroom team. I think some reports today saying they still haven't agreed terms with Foderingham and Sean Maloney, which seems remarkable given that, it was a week ago that the first rumours that Martin O'Neill was going to be staying on. I mean, from your point of view as a fan, Douglas, I mean, you're looking at this going, my God, this is as much as Rangers finished third last season. If this carries on like this at Celtic, with Hearts, with still a lot of work to do. If Rangers can get their recruitment right, is this an opportunity, or I mean, does that give you any sort of sign of encouragement at all?
Yeah, I've got to say it does. I mean, Martin O'Neill coming back doesn't particularly concern me much. Even when he comes back, he's obviously he's managed to motivate that Celtic team to win the title. Albeit in an odd circumstance, 3-way fight up until the last few weeks, and then last game of the season and whatnot. But my worry, as always, is what we do. And Celtic were in turmoil last season and still won the league. The 3 managerial changes last season and still won the league.
Yeah.
Hearts actually for the last few months of the season weren't really championship winning form, in all honesty. But we weren't good enough, to take advantage of that, and that's what kind of worries me. Like there is a bit of me thinks, if Celtic can win the league last season, if Rangers can't win the league against that Celtic team last season, then when the hell are we going to win the league? Because it was such there is an opportunity next season, but there was an opportunity last season as well, which we completely blew. And if we get recruitment right, and if Danny Rowe can learn from his mistakes, and there was many of them, then I think it is a golden chance. But I'm worried that we won't take it, to be honest, because we've been here before. We've been here many times before.
I mean, I look at this 2 ways and I go, listen, I think Andrew Kavanagh and the new board are greatly under pressure because they made so many mistakes. And they did make a lot of mistakes, especially along last season. But I think the thing that should encourage Rangers fans, and this is just my own personal opinion from sort of sitting across the table from Andrew Kavanagh on a couple of occasions over the last sort of 5-6 months, I think he now gets it in a way that he didn't get it before. I think he now has an understanding that Scottish football is not just about who's got the most money wins. And that obviously does go a long way. I think there's an X factor in Scottish football that has to be, taken into consideration. You can't. It's not just about signing the best technical player, the guys of the best quality. Obviously, that is a big part, but I think they now grasp that to go to, as a Rangers player, to go to Tynecastle, to go to Pittodrie, to go to an Easter Road, obviously to go to Celtic Park, you need to have something about you. And if you can be Andrew Skov-Olsen is a prime example, a fantastic footballer in his day, but not really cut out for life in a city of this intensity. And obviously they've now identified that. That's why Lawrence Shankland was made a priority for the opening week of the window. They wanted to get that deal done pronto because they realised there was an opportunity with the clause in his contract, but 2, that this is exactly the type of guy, somebody who absolutely, obviously a boyhood Rangers fan, lives and breathes Rangers, but gets Scottish football because he's been born here, raised here, knows exactly what is required mentally to cope with it. So for me, I think I'd be amazed if Rangers go through a kind of summer like they did last year. I think you'll see them be a far more well-run ship. I think the appointment of Jim Gillespie should encourage Rangers fans too. I think he's I live in Paisley. I deal with St Mirren quite a lot as well. Having spoke to people there, they will tell you that he is a guy who is a pretty mean negotiator. He will drive a hard bargain. I think you'll see Rangers being a far better run outfit this year. Now, obviously, does that translate into success immediately? I don't know. You might have to go through another period of, developing and growing as a team like the club did under Steven Gerrard. But I just cannot, for the life of me, see them being as poor as they were last season. But I think that was because they had a lot of the wrong people in the key positions. I think they've moved this summer to address that. As I say, that's no guarantee of success. I just think they will be a far better run-out outfit in the next year going forward.
It kind of feels like we couldn't get any worse. So, but if there's one thing I've learned over the last 15 years, it's never to assume that things can't get worse. So I'll go as ever into the new season with hope, if not expectation. And we'll call it quits there. Obviously, at the World Cup now to look forward to for a few days before I need to start worrying about Rangers again. So we'll go off and we'll enjoy the football feast and catch up again soon.
Cheers, pal.
Cheers, Andy.